In today's journey, I invite you to join me on a thoughtful exploration of one of history's most challenging chapters, the Atlantic slave trade, and the enduring struggles of those who suffered under its weight. This narrative will take you through centuries of history, beginning with the early days of European exploration, when ambition and greed paved the way for a system that exploited millions of lives. As we journey together, I will share vivid depictions of hardship and resilience, recounting both the suffering inflicted on the enslaved and the courageous efforts of individuals who fought to end this terrible injustice. In this story, the past and present intertwine, revealing not only the brutal realities faced on transatlantic voyages and in labor camps, but also the remarkable strength of those who dared to rise against oppression. We will uncover the historical roots that continue to influence our modern societal structures, showing us how cycles of injustice have evolved over time. Along the way, you will see the lasting impact of policies and practices that still echo in today's world. Through this exploration, I hope to provide a comprehensive, relatable understanding of a dark era while also highlighting important lessons now. The origins of the Atlantic slave trade trace back to the age of European exploration, when countries sought new territories and resources. As explorers ventured across unknown seas, they encountered rich lands in the Americas, and the demand for labor grew rapidly. The discovery of vast plantations and mining operations fueled the need for a workforce that could toil in extreme conditions, leading to the horrific decision to capture and transport millions of Africans across the ocean. Economic ambitions and the belief in racial superiority intertwined to create a system that relied on human suffering. During these early days, European traders built extensive networks that connected African kingdoms with emerging colonies, facilitating the capture and sale of people with little regard for their lives. The system was designed to maximize profit at a staggering human cost, establishing trade routes that would become some of the most notorious in history. At ports in Africa, local leaders were often complicit, trading prisoners of war and dissenters in exchange for exotic goods and weapons. Thus, the trade was not merely imposed from the outside, but grew out of complex interactions between continents. This period was marked by an unyielding pursuit of wealth, where lives were reduced to commodities, popularizing the notion of racial hierarchy. The deep economic and social ties created during this era laid the groundwork for centuries of structural inequality and suffering, echoing in the communities and cultures that persist today. By examining these origins, we begin to understand how a powerful economic system justified its own brutality and shaped the future of entire civilizations, leaving a legacy of pain and resilience. This era not only redefined international trade, but also established enduring power structures and deep cultural scars that influenced the social and political landscapes of nations globally with persistence. Venturing deeper into this horrific narrative, I encounter the personal and collective torment experienced by the enslaved during this dark chapter. The brutal journey began with the violent capture in their homelands, where individuals were torn from their communities and families without warning. In a harsh twist of fate, many were forced into a deadly enterprise, their identities reduced to numbers as they were herded onto crowded ships for what would become the infamous Middle Passage. On these grim voyages, the enslaved endured relentless heat, rampant disease, and constant brutality, as unsanitary conditions turned human beings into mere cargo. A pervasive sense of despair hung in the air, yet even amidst such suffering, hope flickered in subtle forms. Small acts of resistance emerged, a shared look signifying solidarity, a silent prayer whispered into the darkness, or the exchange of remembrances from a distant homeland, all of which underscored the resilience of the human spirit. Upon reaching foreign shores, the reality of bondage intensified. In the oppressive atmosphere of vast plantations, daily life became a litany of grueling labor under a scorching sun, overseers' cruel whips, and harsh punishments meticulously designed to extinguish any spark of rebellion. Within urban centers, enslaved individuals labored in invisible roles that stripped them of their dignity while confining them to squalid quarters. This relentless dehumanization permeated every aspect of their existence, as systemic cruelty and economic exploitation systematically eroded their sense of identity. The pain of separation from loved ones, the loss of native languages and traditions, and the persistent threat of violence inflicted enduring psychological scars. Yet, despite the overwhelming odds, moments of quiet defiance and secret solidarity emerged. In hushed gatherings and covert rituals, traditions were preserved and whispered, serving as beacons of hope that defied the darkness. Every whispered story or shared memory was an act of courage, a subtle reminder that the human spirit could not be entirely subdued. This recounting stands as a tribute to those whose silent struggles and unyielding resilience preserved dignity in the face of relentless injustice, and whose legacy continues to inspire the fight for human rights even today. Each moment of hardship, combined with the bravery to endure, testified to the strength and determination to reclaim humanity despite the overwhelming forces of oppression. Their silent legacy continues to speak to us today, urging us to honor their memory and learn from their story with unwavering perseverance. Turning our attention to the courageous struggle against slavery, I reflect on the determined efforts that gradually dismantled this inhumane institution. The fight was waged by both well-known abolitionists and countless unnamed heroes whose resolve changed the course of history. Visionaries from different walks of life, including writers, activists, and even former slaves, joined forces to challenge the status quo, using printed pamphlets, impassioned speeches, and secret networks to spread the message of liberty and justice. Their courageous acts sowed seeds of hope in hearts battered by fear and oppression. Notable leaders, through steadfast conviction and moral clarity, ignited movements that spanned continents. Their ideas transcended borders, permeating societies that had once accepted the brutal status quo. In many cases, underground networks directed fugitive slaves along secret routes to freedom, defying oppressive regimes and risking their lives in the process. Every act of defiance, whether public protest or quiet subversion, contributed to a growing international outcry for change. In cities and small communities alike, brave souls gathered, organizing meetings and writing dissenting articles that questioned the very foundation of slavery. With unwavering determination, these abolitionists navigated political and social obstacles, calling for legal reforms and inspiring movements that would ultimately lead to emancipation. Their struggles were not fought solely in public squares, but also in hidden rooms where the whispered hopes of the oppressed exchanged faith for action. The legacy of these valiant individuals is palpable even today, as their unwavering fight serves as a guiding light for ongoing battles against injustice. Their collective resistance not only led to the eventual legal abolition of slavery, but also laid the groundwork for future human rights campaigns. Through remembering their sacrifices and celebrating their triumphs, we honor a legacy of audacity and resilience that continues to inspire modern movements for freedom. Their stories remind us that even in the face of overwhelming adversity, a determined few can lead the charge toward a more equitable and just world. Among these transformative efforts, countless small communities made sacrifices by sharing knowledge, forging secret alliances, and continuously challenging oppressive narratives. Their persistent advocacy not only questioned existing systems, but also fostered discussions about rights and justice in every corner of society. These collective actions built bridges between disparate groups, uniting voices in the demand for change, and ultimately paving the way for a world where every individual could aspire to live freely and with dignity. Reflecting on the enduring legacy of slavery, I observe that even long after legal abolition, the shadows of this dark practice extend into modern society. Structures and systems that have roots in the slave trade continue to influence socioeconomic disparities and racial tensions across the globe. Many communities still grapple with the consequences of historical exploitation, where inequality, discrimination, and economic challenges resonate strongly in modern life. The legacy is felt in unequal access to education, healthcare, and opportunities that have deep historical origins. These persistent problems remind us that while laws may change, the underlying mindset can endure if unchallenged. Many international efforts have emerged to expose that exploitation in new guises still thrives today. In today's world, forms of exploitation persist in new guises, human trafficking, forced labor, and other modern forms of slavery continue to take advantage of vulnerable populations, echoing patterns of cruelty from centuries past. Many international organizations and local activists work tirelessly to identify and support victims, striving to dismantle modern networks of exploitation. It becomes clear that the fight against slavery is not confined to history, but is very much a contemporary struggle. As I examine these modern parallels, I also recognize the importance of acknowledging and addressing the historical roots that have shaped current challenges. By understanding how past injustices contribute to present inequalities, we lay the foundation for meaningful reform. This realization calls for concerted efforts in education, policy, and community action to heal wounds that span generations. The story of slavery, therefore, is not just about the past, but a continuing call to action, one that urges us to build a future defined by equality, justice, and respect for human dignity. In this light, understanding replaces indifference, and history serves as a lesson and warning of the dangers of unchecked exploitation. Through continued dialogue and action, we can truly build societies that honor justice and equality. In conclusion, this narrative journey has illuminated the complex and painful history of the Atlantic slave trade and the undying resilience of those who suffered under its yoke. The courageous fight against slavery, led by tireless advocates, profoundly reshaped societies back then and continues to echo in our modern struggles. Reflecting on these lessons, I am reminded that understanding our past is essential to forging a just and compassionate future. May we honor the legacy of those who endured and fought by working together toward a world where every human being is valued and free. Let true justice always prevail.